Welcome back to Replay Retro. I'm Matt, and this week we take a peek into the early 16-bit era with the NEC TurboGrafx-16. Released in 1989, the TurboGrafx was a joint effort between chip manufacturer NEC and game producer Hudson Soft to bring the popular PC Engine system to Western shores. The system was first released in '87 in Japan in a much smaller white case and was the team's first step into the console business since the 1979 release of their PC 8001 home computer system. With its advanced processor and custom graphics chip, the TurboGrafx was an absolute dream machine for gamers, representing a true quantum leap forward from the then highly successful Nintendo Entertainment System, which it outsold in Japan by a notable margin. However, with anticipation mounting for the release of the more powerful Sega Mega Drive and Super Nintendo consoles, the TurboGrafx would undoubtedly have a tough time persuading potential buyers in the West to part with their hard-earned cash and move into the 16-bit era early. Albeit a less than truthful 16-bit era powered by what was essentially an 8-bit processor. However, varying architecture of systems at the time makes it difficult to accurately gauge overall speed. To help push the system forward, a number of pixel-perfect arcade conversions were released, including the massively popular side-scrolling shoot-'em-up R-Type, as well as some cherished Hudson titles, such as a version of Bomberman, allowing party play with up to 5 players, launching Hudson's mascot into the West and starting a series of games which still continues today. All this effort, however, just wasn't enough to impress more than a small number of hardcore gamers in the West, and the machine's strong following in Japan wasn't being repeated in America, where sales weren't enough for NEC to try and break Europe. The PC Engine and TurboGrafx received a CD drive add-on, breaking developers free from the 20MB constraint of the slim Hue cards previous games had used. This was the first time a gaming system had used a new optical medium, and developers quickly took advantage, churning out some of the system's greatest titles, including the amazing Dracula X, the high-intensity Gradius, and its comical spin-off Parodius. Even Hideo Kojima graced the system with his brilliant cyber adventure, Snatcher. The CD drive add-on gave the system an enormous popularity boost in Japan, as well as the ability to play full-motion video, which is something we take for granted in today's games. But in the West, this add-on was so expensive that most gamers simply couldn't get hold of it, and so missed out on the best games the TurboGrafx had to offer. Other upgrades included the arcade card, boosting the memory of the console, but this never found its way to Western markets, and in 1991 the system went handheld in Japan, but was already being torn apart in the West by the Sega Mega Drive, which featured much better games and utilised Sega's blast processing to be far faster than the TurboGrafx. In 1992, the new owners of the technology would try one last effort to push the Mega Drive aside by releasing the Turbo Duo. This was a cheaper, more powerful system with the CD and memory upgrades built in. The new charge was led by advertising mascot Johnny Turbo, who warned consumers against what he claimed were the lies and inferior performance of the Sega system, loosely described in the adverts as faker. Unfortunately, it was all too little too late, as by this time the release of the Super Nintendo and the approaching Mega CD hammered the final nail into the coffin, and no amount of quality games could save the TurboGrafx. The system was officially dead in the West, with only a trickle of games being released up to 1996. Nevertheless, let's take a look at the little console that never quite made it. So, this is the actual TurboGrafx console itself. As you can see, it's a very simple, very basic design, with the console's logo sticker here, and just a simple moulding around the top. Looking at the front of the system, you can see the card slot here, where the games themselves would go, which look like this, and simply slot in like that with a nice satisfying click as they go in. Also on the front you have the power switch, so when you switch it across to the side, the power would be on. And as you can see, you get the little red mark there to tell you it's on. No LED, but here you can see there's just this little lock mechanism that slides across with the switch to stop you from being able to pull your game out while the system is running. Also at the front is the controller socket, which, just like the 3DO, the system only had one controller socket on the actual console, but unlike the 3DO, you couldn't daisy chain the controllers, which means that gamers would have to buy a multi-tap adapter called the Turbo Tap if they wanted to play multiplayer. This enabled them to play up to 5 players for use in games such as Bomberman, which allowed that feature. The controls themselves are, well, they look kind of like an upgraded version of the NES control pads. Again, you have the connector there, NEC's proprietary connector, to plug into the system itself, which isn't the greatest of fits. There you go, it's in. And then on the console's controller here, you have a little D-pad that doesn't feel all that brilliant. Feels quite cheap, if I'm being completely honest. Your equivalent of A and B buttons there, they're actually just 2 and 1. And your select and run just being start. Here is quite an interesting little feature. These are the turbo controllers for the buttons, so obviously the higher they are, the faster the control will turbo, which is good because on other systems you did have to buy a turbo controller if you wanted to use such a function, whereas here you have the option to have it on, or medium or off, depending on whatever you might want to use. So it's a really good turbo system. Around this side again there is nothing. On the back panel here, this section comes away to reveal the port for the CD adapter, so that you could attach the CD adapter onto the back here, which made the unit quite a lot deeper, and obviously it enabled you to play the CD games on the system. Around the side of that adapter port is the power supply jack, which when this cover is back on, that jack is covered up and the cable simply comes out the side here. Did take me a moment or two when I first got the system to realise where the power cable went. And also on the side here you can see the AV port for connecting to your television. And that really is about it from this very simple console. It really is one of the most basic designs for a system that I've seen. So let's plug it into the TV now and let's have a look at some of those games.
First up then we have Galaga 90, which is a port of the arcade classic Galaga 88. No idea why they changed the number. There you go. So as you can see, it's a nice bright vivid game showing the potential of the TurboGrafx-16 over its competitors such as the Nintendo Entertainment System. And it's just a very faithful version of the arcade game. The sounds are very crisp and fresh, the explosion effects are quite impressive really for an 80s game. And the gameplay is as addictive as you would expect from a game like Galaga. You could sit here playing this for a very long time. Oops, just hit the start button there accidentally. Next up then, Victory Run, a racing game on the TurboGrafx. Just put my name in here, just put it like that. And then next you can select components to help support your car during the race. A couple of tyres and gear boxes there, whatever. This is a really solid racer, I like it. Colours again are nice and vivid, and it's a really quick feeling game. It's hard to believe that Sega's blast processing would eventually convince people that games could be faster. I really don't think that's the way it was at all. The good thing about this game is the way the damage works. You saw earlier we were picking support parts, and as the race continues you can damage the car, like the gearbox or the tyres or the suspension. And that will have an effect on the game. You can see here I've just fast forwarded it a little bit and you can see that my tyres are damaged, my suspension's damaged. There's a lot of damage going on. My gearbox for example is damaged, and that means I can no longer reach the higher speeds that the car can go to. Quite good stuff in an early racing game, I think. Next up, Vigilante. Another arcade port. The skinheads have taken Madonna hostage. I think she should stay there. I don't want to rescue her. But anyway, apparently as the game gets started, we're forced to go on a rescue mission for Madonna, which, it's not particularly fair, but okay. Pretty standard stuff. Your average side-scrolling beat-em-up. Baddies come at you, you punch them or kick them out of your way. You can see some nunchucks down on the floor there. As soon as we've got a second, we'll go pick them up so that we've got something else to hit them with. That guy just pulled a knife. Let's get those nunchucks. Yeah, helicopter nunchucks to the face. Oh, no, lost them already. I really don't like this game. This game is not good. But, you know, I suppose if you're into side-scrolling beat-em-ups, this is a fairly solid example. It's just not my kind of game. Okay, last game we'll look at then is JJ and Jeff. This is a Hudson Soft game. And a very bizarre Hudson Soft game. I'm not entirely sure what's going on. Here we see the guys in their detective agency. And that's right, a rich man has been kidnapped. Generic rich man has been kidnapped. Let's go get him. Let's go find out where he is. So we're playing as Jeff here. Although, hello, that looks like JJ. Give him a kick. Sound on this game, I think, is really good. Much better than anything that the NES or the Master System at the time were putting out. So that again highlights just how much more powerful this system was. Its audio capabilities are far better. Can we go into this toilet thing? Ah, I can't quite get back to it. Damn you, side-scrolling games! Damn you! Can we ride this fire hydrant, maybe? Seems like a logical idea. Oh, I've gone too far past again. Cross? Did that... What? That bird just dropped a dog turd. Okay. Jump this thing. And killed by a bird while it was having a poo. Let's try again. Okay, I didn't realise that thing would actually hurt. Not good. Oh, unbelievable. Dead already. Although, weirdly, you can see that the vitality bar at the top of the screen is quite big, yet 3 things managed to kill me. It's not good. Oh, God's sake. Here we go. Wait for the bird to pass. Run away from the dog turd. From a graphics point of view, I think this game highlights the difference between an 8 and a 16-bit system quite well. Everything is much sharper, much clearer, much brighter. There's just a lot more going on. The overall feel is a lot better. Is that JJ again? Wearing a bunny outfit of some description. Where do we go? I don't understand. Right. Enough of this nonsense.
So what we've seen today clearly shows the TurboGrafx-16 was a very capable games console for its time, and at release was far superior to any of its competitors. It's safe to say the system could have held its own against the later releases of the Super Nintendo and Sega Mega Drive, but limited marketing activity and an unwillingness by NEC to fully commit to Western markets stopped the system ever gaining real traction amongst gamers. Perhaps the big players in gaming would be very different today if only NEC had gone for a full-powered Western launch, including a cheaper CD system, before Sega and Nintendo had even launched their 16-bit systems. NEC tried again in 1994 with the PCFX system, but once again failed to commit enough resources to go head-to-head with the competition, and watched as the system failed to impress in a world of 3D hardware, before eventually partnering with Sega on the Dreamcast. Next time on Replay Retro, we'll be taking a look at one of my favourite peripherals. Until then, don't forget to follow Replay Retro on Twitter, where you can find out the latest news about the show. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.